please rise for the presentation of our colors by the Salem Police Honor Guard.
Detail. Up. Left. Hey. Prepare to post. Move. Ready. Post. Dress. Cut. Honor Guard, uniform personnel, present. Up.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Up.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Anderson. I am the great honor to pastor a local church and as well as serve on the police department and be one of the local police chaplains. Thank you for being here this morning. Would you bow your heads with me as we bless this time? God, we thank you for this incredible country we have to live in. We thank you for the city and the leadership. We thank you for all of the men and the women that serve this city 24 hours a day. Some just get off 1 hour ago. We thank you for blessing us by living in this city, and I pray you bless the Salem Police Department. Bless this time we have together. We thank you and bless this city. In your name, amen.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Please be seated. So thank you, Chaplain Anderson, and thank all of you for attending Breakfast with the Chief this morning. Those of you that have attended before, just looking around, it's about twice the size we've ever had. So it's just amazing this morning looking out and seeing the support that the community gives the foundation. So again, I'm Dan Wellert, president of the Salem Police Foundation. The goal of our organization is to enhance and improve relationships between the Salem Police Department and our community, and to provide grants for law enforcement agencies for special equipment, training, and collaborative community programs. I'd like to make a special note of our major sponsors. If you could please hold applause until a little later. A special, huge, extra big thank you to our title sponsor, Salem Health. We just couldn't have done this without you. I'd like to also thank our SWAT team sponsors, CB2 Architect and DLR Group, Columbia Bank, and the Rowell Hawkins family. And thank you to our bomb squad sponsors, Grove, Mueller, and Swank, McGinty, Belcher, and Hamilton, and my family. It's a very important cause for our family. And thank you to all of our sponsors listed on the program. Again, we could not do this without you. So let's do a round of applause for everybody. So our dedicated volunteer board of directors, they really do work tirelessly to do all of these things that you enable us by your support to do. So will our board members please stand just so you can be recognized? Their names are printed in your program here. So as soon as everybody's standing, everybody up, please give them a round of applause. So, some of you may know Chuck Bennett. Mayor Bennett has served as Salem mayor since 2017. He spent 9 years on our city council, has been an Oregon state representative, and served as governmental affairs representative, newspaper reporter, and editor. He has been a great advocate for the safety of our citizens and a supporter of the officers that serve the city. Please help me welcome my friend, Salem's Mayor, Chuck Bennett.
Well, it's always interesting to hear your lifetime summarized in one sentence. It's a way to begin your day. Well, congratulations to all of you for being here. I was talking with Angie about how did we cram all these people over at the top floor of the Broadway Commons. She explained to me that apparently I'd have very little depth sense because there's twice as many people here as have been here in the past. So congratulations to those of you who are new and to all of you who are coming back to take time to honor Police Chief Jerry Moore. I can say without hesitation and do on a very regular basis, Jerry Moore is quite simply the best police chief in the United States, bar none. Every time it's an applause line, Jerry. I think it's just, I think you have to kind of stop for a minute and think about Chief Moore. I know all of you know him, but let me just tell you, he is, I believe, the most experienced and compassionate law enforcement officer serving today. And those are the kinds of attributes that I think every city looks for, or every county looks for. We're very, very fortunate to have him as our police chief, and he promises he'll be here for the next 20 years. Is that right, Chief? Again, Chief, I cannot thank you enough on behalf of the community, on behalf of the City Council. I do want to acknowledge if there are any members of the City Council here. I did see Councilor Tom Anderson, and I don't think I see anyone else, just looking over the crowd real quickly. So, Councilor Anderson, thank you very much for being here. The Salem Foundation is an incredibly active group. They work alongside the Salem Police Department to help fund projects that make the most sense for the department. The City of Salem, while wishing we could do everything to fund everything that this department needs, there are issues that have to be dealt with beyond our capabilities and that are quite specific to the department. The desires for training, technology, and the safety of our officers are paramount to the city and paramount to the foundation. This is where the Salem Police Department regularly steps in and helps provide those kinds of things that make this department one of the really outstanding departments in the United States. As an incredible partner with the city, the foundation just last year received the Al Laux Business Government Partnership Award for its involvement raising $100,000 for the police department's new mobile command vehicle. It's downstairs, and if you, yeah, really. If you haven't toured it yet, really take just a few minutes to go down and see this. It really is a remarkable vehicle and a remarkable piece of technology. And I was just talking with D.C. Belshaw about its use recently in a case we read about in the newspaper where we had issues over on about Summer and D Street in my neighborhood, and how useful that became immediately. Really excited about it. This is really an excellent example of how the foundation offers its assistance. In fact, projects funded this past year total almost $250,000 for endeavors both large and small. You know about the new mobile command center, or vehicle rather. Other examples of projects funded include the DARE program, the 3 new K-9s with training and gear, and both are vital to the safety of our community. As you all know, construction of the new police station is underway. The new facility will allow for enhanced efficiency and safety for not only the department's 190 officers, but for the public. Frankly, it is very exciting to watch it coming out of the ground now. I don't know if you've been by it in the past several weeks, but you're beginning to see what that station's going to look like, and it is going to be fantastic. It is going to be a whole new world for our police department. 30,000 square feet suddenly become almost 120,000 square feet. It's going to be a tremendous change for them, and really pleased to see it. I actually toured the current police station back in the 70s as a reporter, and I remember how excited Chief Holliday was. They had a couple of jail cells. I recently toured it and discovered what they really are storage cabinets. I didn't quite catch that at the time. Today you'll hear and ask for the purchase of training simulator in the new police station to enhance officer training so they're ready to face any situation that should arise. I would encourage you to join me in supporting this valuable training tool that the police department would not otherwise be able to afford. To close, I want to personally thank Dan Wellard and the dedicated members of the Salem Police Foundation for their ongoing support of Salem's police to enhance the safety of our community. Thank you very much, Dan, and to your board members and all of you for your contributions to this department. It makes all the difference. Now I want to introduce Deputy Chief Steve Belshaw, who's going to share with you some highlights of last year's Breakfast with the Chief. D.C. Belshaw. Must walk out this room. You bet.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Bennett. That was, it's always great to have you here and be part of this, and your support has been really amazing throughout this building project and through the years. So this is my 8th time of standing up here in front of a group like this, a group of supporters, people that support the men and women of the police department, and it's always my privilege. So just by a show of hands, how many of you, is this the first time for Breakfast with the Chief? Man, that's amazing. So you're in for a great time. This is the highlight of the event. That's what they told me, or that's what I heard was the highlight of the event. They then explained to me, you're going to talk about the highlights, which really hurt my feelings. And they said, no, you are a highlight after the chief and the mayor and the district attorney and the dogs and the free breakfast. But I think I'm in the top 10 of the highlights of this morning, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. So, but this is a year of firsts. This is the first year we've had vendors here for you to actually see the things that we're asking for, and you can actually see the demonstration of that. If you ask real nicely, you might be able to ride a bicycle, but maybe not. It might be a little crowded in here, but this is the first time we have done a breakfast with the chief where the building is actually going up. We've talked about it for a number of years, and this year it's actually going up. And so I'm also going to explain to you what this colored thing is to my right here. This is a rendition of the public art for the new building. And we have Blessing Hancock here. Blessing is the artist for this. And so stop by the booth because as she will explain to you, this art piece is going to be covered with words from the community and from our supporters and from the members of the police department about what you think about the police department and why the police department is important to you. So stop by and you can add those comments and you can be a part of the art and be a part of the new building. Also on your table, you have this little card for the building buzz, so you can follow the progress of the construction. We have a live camera on there, and so go to that website. I have one caveat that I always give. If you are sick of hearing me talk, then don't go to the website because it's videos of me talking more. So, It's really cool to have that ability to do that. But not only do I get to talk about the highlights, it's also my privilege to talk about the chief, because this is Breakfast with the Chief. And this is the moment every year that he dreads, because it's a loose cannon up here with an open mic. So, in fact, just 2 weeks ago, I think he said, what are you going to do to embarrass me this year? I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he referenced several years ago a completely innocent comment I made about the police trading cards and the difficulty you have in finding the chief's rookie card, because it is highly collectible and very old. And you guys asked me about the rookie card and where it was, and I was just kidding that there was no rookie card, but you keep asking me. People stop me in stores and they talk to me at meetings and they want to know more about the chief and about his 40 years. And so we found you his rookie card a couple of years ago. We found his undercover Serpico card and showed you that, and still you demanded more. More. And so, because the people asked, I can't let them down. So I did some research like a true detective. I used my sources and my skills, and this is where the chief got his start. It's been in his blood all this time. I give him a bad time, but really, I can't ask for a better chief. No, seriously, because he sat me down and said, Steve, you can't have a better chief, so stop asking. So, but, 9 years ago, he had a vision of what a foundation could look like. And we talked. We never thought it would be quite like this, a room this big. But that vision was there. The drive was there, and here we are today with over $250,000 raised in funds, a new command vehicle, and those kinds of things. So if you haven't been part of this before, I want to give you just a little history of the Salem Police Foundation. So in 2011, we started with building a canine course out at Willow Lake Wastewater Treatment Plant. It's a state-of-the-art canine course, and canine teams came from all over the area to train there, and so they still use that today. In 2012, thanks to the foundation, we bought a portable forensic light system to help us solve crimes and get fingerprints out in the field, some things that we hadn't been able to do before, and support for our programs that our officers were involved in. In 2013 was our first big ask. We asked for the foundation to purchase trauma kits. Many of you know the story that our officers went down to Benton County, and one of their sergeants was shot by a suspect, and as one was Corporal Andy Connolly with our department was shot in the foot. And they used the trauma kit to save the sergeant's life down in Benton County. And we thought it was important. The foundation stepped up and raised the money for the trauma kits for every officer to have one to carry on their person, and which they do today. Those kits have saved several lives out in the community. Fortunately, we haven't had to use one on an officer yet, but they have saved lives out in the community, and those are a big part of what we're trying to do in the department. In 2014, we asked for our crime cams for our domestic violence officers that help us take bruise photography and increase prosecution of domestic violence cases, and those cameras are used every day. The officers take them out every day and use them. You also raised the money for Canine Baco. Baco was a great purchase. Many of you remember in 2016, Baco led the charge at the Walmart parking lot and was shot in the face by the suspect in the bus at the Walmart parking lot that barricaded himself. Baco never gave up. Baco, even being shot in the face, if you see the video, Baco wanted back in that bus to finish that fight. And so he was a great dog for us. In 2015, with your help, we purchased the canine cameras and the SWAT helmets. Our SWAT helmets were hand-me-downs from hand-me-downs, and so for them to have brand new helmets that would protect them on these missions is an amazing thing. In 2016, we wrapped our first pink police patrol car. That made the national news, NBC Nightly News. And so that was a big deal, and that was through support from the Salem Police Foundation and McGinty Belcher. We also were able to purchase the chip-off technology, which helps us recover information from damaged cell phones. We solve more crimes with cell phones than you could imagine because people are attached to their cell phones. And then in 2018, we had 3 canines that had to retire unexpectedly. We asked you for help, and you donated over $75,000 to purchase 3 canines, which included their training and all of their equipment. And that was an amazing, amazing response from you in the community. You also offered and stepped up to pay the ongoing health expenses for those retired canines so that they could live out their lives with their handlers, and the handlers wouldn't have to bear those health expenses. And then you helped us purchase the UTV, or the mule, and you should see it downstairs. That's for the downtown team. It's a 4-wheel drive thing. So those officers go in places you can't imagine, at Minnow Brown Park and Wallace Marine Park, and they use that. They got information here just a couple months ago that living out in a homeless camp out in Wallace Park was a woman who had just given birth to a baby, and the officers went out there and found a 2-day-old baby and mom living in a homeless camp, and they used that vehicle to transport her out of there, her and the child, and get them to a safe place. So that vehicle is used and is going to be a really, really valuable tool for us. So those are the things that you have already helped us with. You expect us to be ready, you expect us to be able to respond, and these tools have really helped us to be able to do that. But I would be remiss in doing my job if I didn't tell you there are other things that we could use, and we could use your support on. One of the things that you see here is the volcanic bikes. These are police-designed bikes. They don't sell them to the general public, they sell them to the police department. There are a lot of great bikes out there, but these guys are riding these bikes 40 hours a week. They ride on-road, off-road, trails, upstairs, you name it, they will try to ride on it. Most of the time they're successful, but every now and then not so much. But so take a look at those bikes, and you know, with the ever-growing homeless problem and the camps, these guys need the equipment to get off-road and back into those areas, and these bikes would help us do that. And then the TI training simulator. When we teach our officers about situations, it's really hard to talk to them about, and you've seen the old pictures of some of the training that we do. But when you think about in your life, the last time you were in a situation where you completely froze and didn't know what to do, that situation was probably something that you had never faced before, you'd never thought about. And your brain had to process that of what do I do, what are my options, and how do I do that? In a life and death situation, those seconds can make a huge difference. So giving the officers the opportunity to face real life situations so that then when they're out there on the street and they see that situation, their brain says, I've seen this situation before, I know how to handle this, I can deal with this, and they react. And that's the training that we are trying to give our officers, and we do it with a lot of instructors and hand-to-hand, but that takes time and effort and takes officers off the street. And this gives us the ability with real-life situations that these officers can face. And so I want you to see this just brief video about the TI training simulator, and then after the breakfast, come on up and you can try it yourselves. So thanks for being here.
Welcome to Sim Training. You are now out of the world of reality and enter the world of imagination. For this simulator to be effective, you need to imagine the location you are in. Are you ready? You are at a bank checking on an unknown disturbance. I want you to react to the chaos and deal with any situations that come up. Begin scenario. Now you're at a dark alley, a domestic disturbance, a parental dispute at a school, a quickie mart, a fast food restaurant, a lawyer's office.
This looks an awful lot like the bank robbery scenario. When we looked at the design of the new police department, we wanted to try and bring everything we could on site. This includes some of our training disciplines. Currently, almost all of the Salem Police Department training takes place off-site. The shooting range, driving course, classroom training, defensive tactics, and confrontational simulations, or consims, all is done away from the station. And because of the regular training our police department does, this can be costly in time and money to always travel to other locations. The new police station will include areas to allow on-site training, but extra tools for training are not included in the new building budget. But we now have the opportunity to train on-site with a use of force simulations training system, a system that will allow firearms training and consims training all in one, a system for learning by doing in an effective, practical, and safe manner, a system with real-life scenarios that unfold in front of the student so they don't have to imagine, a system where both the student and instructor can see the scenario unfolds and neither have to imagine what the other person visualized. This is the TI Training Lab. The system works by projecting real-life scenarios on up to 3 screens, giving the student a fully immersive experience. Controlled by a central computer, The system allows the instructor to change the outcome of the scenario in real time based on the student's actions. This allows for flexibility and repeatability with the over 800 preloaded scenarios. Adding to this realistic training, the system incorporates the actual life-saving tools the officer will use on the street, such as their firearms, tasers, pepper spray, and flashlights. The TI Training Lab, Use of Force Simulator.
Now in this scenario, I want you to use the taser simulator. You are talking to a guy swinging around a large stick in the middle of the street. Begin scenario.
Get down on the ground.
Good morning. My name is Baha Wanli. I have the honor and pleasure of serving as your Chief Operating Officer for your community health system. And we also have the honor and pleasure of bringing our team here that serve you for your community health system. Can you please stand, Salem Health? Thank you. Thank you. I have the pleasure of introducing the man that needs no introduction. That is a tough job. You might think it's actually easy. I mean, how much do you have to do? I was thinking about this all night. About how do you introduce somebody that everybody here came to see? So I started thinking and thinking and thinking. I realized, there's a lot of similarities between Salem Health and the Salem Police Department. So I started thinking, okay, what are those similarities? We are both visionary, very technology advanced, as you just saw. I mean, for example, this year in Salem Health, we rolled out something called virtual care. What that is at the convenience of your phone, you can actually see a provider or a physician instead of taking the time of traveling and going to a clinic location. It's fast, it's easy, it's convenient. It's the most out-of-pocket price is $39 if your insurance doesn't cover it. And then I was thinking about the Salem Police Department. They have virtual tickets. All you have to do is run a red light. You have no police officer that needs to pull you over any longer. The ticket just shows up at your door. Some advice, Chief? You should add the stickers there. Because when I got pulled over, the police officers gave my kids some stickers. Now they want to get pulled over all the time. You are very visionary. Jokes aside, this is truly an important partnership for us. We have a lot of overlap amongst each other. The ED, for example, is a place where we interact quite a bit. I wanted to share a story that an ED nurse manager sent out to his staff in January. This is shortly after an incident that took place. So this is the email that went out to the staff. Last night, just as the department couldn't be more full, a bunch of kids got into the car, didn't buckle, and went over 100 miles per hour before hitting a tree. We're not sure where they were going, but they ended up in the ED. Today, 100 plus patients in the department. Every space was full. ED team continues the amazingness that started that day and the night before. Salem Police arrives. This time, not to see the kids making poor decisions, but instead to see you. You amazed them last night. Your compassion, organization in the chaos, prioritization of care, and all you do didn't go unnoticed. They brought these gifts as a token of appreciation. A photo of candy bars with sign notes. I mean, they were remarkable. What police department do you know that would do something like that? Truly. So it is an honor for Salem Health to sponsor this event and recognize also the police department, the police everyday enforcement that you provide and the safety you provide. So can we give a round of applause to the police? So without further ado, I get to do the honor of introducing the man that does not need an introduction. The first time I met the chief, it was several years ago at the Salem Health Medical Group Toy Drive. This is an annual event where we collect toys with our partners here, and we distribute them to kids in need during the holidays. It's a really remarkable event. At that time when I met the chief, I couldn't figure out, is he a chief or is he an investigator? Let me explain. I was at Costco loading up groceries, probably things I didn't need like I always get when I'm at Costco. My kids were running around doing whatever they do. I probably looked like I needed a lot of help. And then this kind gentleman comes up behind me and starts loading stuff up and helping me out. I was very surprised. Just several weeks later, there was a community bridge building event in Corvallis. And it was intended to build bridges between law enforcement and community leaders amongst the state. Actually, my dad hosted it at his house, so I didn't think it was going to be anything serious. But because I'm his favorite son, I decided to attend. So I show up there, and the police is there. It was kind of odd, you know. That's when I realized he wasn't investigating me, as far as I know. But he's just the great leader that he is. That Costco experience, everyone knows the chief to be a very kind-hearted, helpful person who will support you as needed. The community event in Corvallis, he takes personal time off to ensure the community gets the support it needs. And that's just the chief. So Chief Jerry Mora has been in law enforcement for 42 years. I hope I can get that rookie card one day. And he's been serving Salem since 1979. During his career in Salem, he's been assigned to 5 different divisions and was promoted to Chief of Police in 2005. Chief Mora has an outstanding resume of service on different state, regional, and local task forces. You can read about these in the bios. But before I invite Chief Jerry Mora to join me on stage, I wanted to read one of my favorite proverbs. It's a Native American proverb that I think very much describes the chief. Tell me, and I'll forget. Show me, and I may not remember. Involve me, and I'll understand. Chief Mora, thank you for involving us. Thank you for involving the community. It's truly an honor to call you our chief and my friend. So please welcome the chief himself.
Well, thank you so much. I've said it many times. That means so much to me, and it's so great to have so many friends here. And as I talk about friends, I should probably talk about Deputy Chief Belshaw. I won't say much. He does it to me every year. I'm always wary, but clearly I now have to be wary of the rest of my family who provided those pictures, so I'll remember that. Baha, thank you for the great introduction, and we certainly appreciate our partnership with Salem Health. It means a great deal to us, so thank you for everything you do. 39 years ago, give or take a month or two, I was sworn in as a Salem police officer. I believed it then, and I believe it now, that it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, as I've had a long and satisfying career. The day I was sworn in, I loved the job, and I still love it today. And as I near retirement in the next few years, I think about that, but I also know how much I'm going to miss what I do. And one of the reasons I'm going to miss that so much is because of all the people in this room, which I will truly miss. Readiness, challenges, and change. Those words seem to be important to what we're talking about today, because being ready to deal with the issues that confront 21st century law enforcement requires a great deal of change, and we have certainly seen that in the last few years, and certainly in my career. You know, being ready takes on many forms in today's world. Many times it means navigating things that we may have never seen before, as we mentioned earlier. Those are things where you say, you know, I thought I'd seen it all, but I guess I was wrong. They're things you see on TV or watch or read about in the newspapers. Sometimes those incidents end in tragedy, but more often than not, those incidents make us marvel at the resiliency and the professionalism of police officers in this country. You know, preparing for everything that we can possibly imagine is, as you might guess, a challenge. But we do that through training, equipment, 21st century policing thinking. We watch our peers, the men and women, our brothers and sisters in law enforcement. We watch what works for them, and we also watch what doesn't work for them. And we certainly lean on the valuable assets and resources that we have within our own organization. This police foundation and all of you in this room have been the impetus for many of the items that we need to do our job on a daily basis in a challenging environment. I could mention many of those items, but Deputy Chief Belle already did mention some of the things that this foundation has done for us that have helped prepare us for the things that we need to do. And I would certainly be remiss, as the mayor did, if I didn't thank this community for that building that's going up 6 blocks from here, which is going to change our lives. It is going to be an incredible building, and I want to thank a few of the people just real briefly, our architects, CB2 and the DLR group, our project management, Day CPM, and of course, our builder, J.E. Dunn, for the work they're doing on that. We look forward to that completion. And my clock is ticking, so please hurry. I have to tell you, great change has come over the course of my 42-year career. While our mission always remains the same, and that's keeping this city safe, how we do and how we go about that and the roles have changed significantly. You know, I don't do all the things that I used to do when I was a real cop. Fact is, I may have lost a step or two, so maybe that's good. But I will tell you, I certainly remember the good old days when all I got excited about was the next call that I was going to go to. So while today's world of policing is a little bit different than what I remember, for most of the folks that are seated with you in this room, it's pretty much business as usual because that's really all they knew. Perhaps it is their good old days as well, but I will tell you, I marvel every single day at the professionalism and the work that our folks do. They do an incredible job. You know, outside the hazards and the threats that law enforcement brings, in today's policing, we are just as much social workers sometimes as we are police officers. And part of our readiness is being prepared to deal with issues that may not be normal for us, or they might be foreign to us a little bit. And those are some of the things that have been discussed earlier. The challenges of dealing with folks in mental health crisis or homeless. And those are always difficult. You know, our values include the words honor, integrity, service, and compassion. And from the letters and the phone calls and the discussions I have with this community, I think our officers do an incredible job dealing with those tasks in a very caring manner. You know, I've told you and all our officers many times that public safety is probably one of the most important jobs there is in this world. But make no mistake, it is also one of the toughest. And I am dead serious when I tell you that. There are very few professions where you can make a minor error in doing something in the field, and within hours, a video of you can go viral in social media. And many of those incidents are when we're dealing with incidents that would make many of you cringe. While we all sleep at night in the comfort of our homes, we seldom think about the brave individuals who are out on the street allowing us that comfort to be safe in our homes and sleep well. But they are out there, I'll guarantee you. And that's why we have the ability to sleep as well as we do, because they are willing to put themselves in harm's way to make sure that you're going to be safe. You know, I'm briefed daily on the activities that occur in our community and the previous 24 hours, and I just picked a few of them so you have an idea of what our officers deal with. Our officers responded to a caller who advised his ex-girlfriend was attacking him with a knife. Officers responded to a vehicle which had rolled multiple times with 2 or 3 trauma entries inside that car. Officers responded to a self-inflicted gunshot wound involving a 14-year-old. I think Steve talked about the child that was born in a homeless camp in West Salem, where our officers had to go in and find her and, quite frankly, save her. An armed robbery that occurred by a man wearing a mask and armed with a handgun. Our officers were fortunate enough to be in the vicinity and set up a perimeter around an area where the person had fled. And we brought in a canine, and the canine did exactly what it always does. It led us right to the suspect, still armed, hiding in some bushes. But what we sometimes forget, there's a human being at the other end of that leash who's following a dog, not knowing what they're going to find and how that person's going to react. We respond to fights involving 10 or 15 people, sometimes armed with weapons, and when we respond, sometimes we're outnumbered 3 to 1. We respond to male running back and forth in the freeway, trying to get hit by a car, and our officers are trying to save him. Pursuits, fights, domestic disturbances, barricaded, armed, wanted, and suicidal subjects. Every one of those involves a danger most of you would probably would rather not face nor even hear about. But those are just a few examples of what our officers do every single day. You know, in our world, I talk about the changes. We now talk about de-escalation, pursuit termination, disengagement, delaying custody. All of those are things we now teach our officers and have become a way of life in our world of policing. Those are very different than when I started, I'll guarantee you. But that's just our job now. And we do it because we value human life, regardless of whether it's a victim, a suspect, our community, or our police officers. You know, I'm so glad the men and women of our department and their significant others and their children are here today to see what a room full of supporters and people that appreciate them look like. This is probably the first time we've been able to do that simply because we didn't have space for everyone. So I think it's in this larger venue, it's been incredible for them to be able to do that. And I've talked with my folks for years about this event, how uplifting a day like this can be. How instead of seeing those items that I described moments ago, they get to see a room full of people that understand and appreciate what they do. How 1 hour of being here can mean so much to our officers, knowing that this community has their back. You know, I read a letter to the editor recently, and it caught my attention. The letter suggested with the erosion of trust nationwide in law enforcement that it was going to be harder and harder for police departments to find people that were willing to take on that job. It also recognized that those same people that complain and protest against the police are usually the first one to pick up a phone call without hesitation and call the police because they want them to come and protect them. There's a bit of irony there. But the writer suggested that perhaps instead of complaining about the police, they should get to know them, invite them to their homes, their businesses, and get to know them as people. You know, I understand that sentiment and what the writer was saying, but I'm also cognizant of the support this community provides our police department. It is just incredible. And I've said often to you, but our officers will tell me, they're stopped every single day by someone to thank them for what they're doing. And it happens multiple times. And in a world where that doesn't happen all the time, it means a great deal to our officers. You know, I don't believe that letter writer was from Salem, but I certainly supported the thoughts and suggestions that he had. But I also felt sorry for him because, quite frankly, the fact that he felt compelled to write a letter like that is so far different than what I've come to experience in Salem. You see, filling a room full of friends and allies and supporters is something that I've become accustomed to and something that I will be forever grateful for. I've told many of you in this room that support like that starts with us. I tell our officers the same thing. We will only be supported in this community if we police this community in a manner that they can be proud of. And you know, I think our officers get that. They understand it, they believe it, and they live it. Now that doesn't mean we're perfect, probably far from it, but it doesn't mean we can't try to be perfect. The fact is, there are many ways to police a community. We hope we found a model that this community can be proud of and appreciate by their officers. Somewhere along the line, I think we figured that out, and I think that tradition has been passed on from one generation to the next, and I hope it continues long after I no longer work here. I'll give all of you the same suggestions that I give at every Breakfast of the Chief and in every community event that I go to. Take the time to get to know our officers. Stop them when they're not busy, talk to them, go on a ride-along, go through our Citizens Academy. I guarantee you the moments and conversations you share with our officers will be worth every minute you spend with them. In closing, I want to thank you for your support. It means the world to us. You are always so kind, as you were earlier when I came up here, to support me in this organization with your kind applause. And I always appreciate it, and it will last a lifetime, I guarantee you. But the fact of the matter is, I'm only a figurehead for this organization. And the men and women seated at your tables and all around you are really what this police department is all about and makes us what we are. So today, and perhaps you would allow me to join you, and instead of directing your applause at me after I'm done speaking, I hope you'll direct it at the men and women that are seated around you in your tables, because they deserve that recognition as much or more than I do. So if you would please join me and thank all of those officers seated with you, I guarantee you it will last them a lifetime as well. Thank you very much. Thank you again. It is now my pleasure to introduce a friend of mine, probably one of the most professional women I've ever met. We've worked many incidents and situations together, and she is always a stand-up person who is very willing to speak her mind. Marion County District Attorney Paige Clarkson.
Thank you, Chief. I bet you have some cool stories. I get told this a lot at parties. As soon as people learn that I'm a DA, they say it as less of a statement and more of a request, a verbalized hope that I'm going to share something really juicy, an entertaining tale of law and order, or better yet, Dateline, complete with the jilted ex-boyfriend suspect or the unassuming secretary with a secret double life. I will typically just smile in response to these very well-meaning requests, and I might laugh a little. And then I usually share my go-to funny story about the DUI driver who repeatedly yelled to the officer, and I quote, "Throw me a monkey." I have no idea what that means either. But I do know that drunk folks can say some pretty funny things sometimes, and they end up in police reports that we all enjoy at the DA's office. And so we all chuckle a little bit at these parties, and with my fellow partygoers seemingly satisfied, I happily return to the hors d'oeuvres. It's not that I don't have other stories, because I do. 2 decades of doing this work, and I have so many stories. I have stories like the Salem PD sergeant, who while driving to a midday meeting in busy downtown Salem, watched as a knife-wielding attacker viciously stabbed at a passing bicyclist. That sergeant was forced to draw his firearm and hold the unpredictable man at gunpoint in order to stop that assault, all while lunchtime citizens dined just feet away. I have stories like the young mother whose boyfriend's jealous anger and violent need to control her led him to place both of his hands firmly around her neck and methodically squeezed the life from her, all while her 2-year-old son looked on. Her quiet, lifeless form was pinned beneath him and was in full view of the Salem officer who had just responded to a desperate 911 call for help. Seeing this horror through the front window, that officer immediately kicked in the front door to that residence and saved her life. A second officer responded and quickly rescued her screaming and terrified toddler. Once she was conscious and safely at treatment at the emergency department, that doctor would later confirm just how close that young mother had come to death that day. And she would later confirm for those officers that this was not the first time that that had happened. And I have stories like 2-year-old Sam, who was held hostage along with an innocent neighbor by her mother's boyfriend. It was at gunpoint, and it was for hours. And during that siege, Sam had no way to know that her mother had just been murdered by that boyfriend. She had no way to know that her mother had run, quite literally for her life, while that enraged boyfriend fired his gun repeatedly at her from the parking lot of their apartment. Sam's mother could have run anywhere. She could have run away to hide in a nearby field. She could have run towards the safety of the road or a neighboring apartment. But Sam's mother ran toward the single most important thing in her life. She ran towards Sam. And her perpetrator would see to it that she would never make it there. And so the Salem PD SWAT and negotiations teams, many of those members, by the way, sit among you today, surrounded that apartment through a long, freezing November night, trying to save Sam's life. And when Sam was finally pushed out the front door of the apartment by the captor whom she once trusted, it was into the arms of a waiting Salem SWAT officer. That officer scooped her up and ran with her to safety. The rest of the team rescued the terrified neighbor and apprehended the man who would eventually go to prison for the murder of Sam's mom. So yes, I have some stories. But I've learned that they aren't really the kind that people typically want to hear about at parties, because they are windows into the darkest things that human beings can do to one another. They are real world, real ugly, real dangerous episodes of cruelty that happen in our own backyards. But they are also stories of true triumph, honorable heroism in the face of horror, and courage over cowardice. And they are stories of your police department, your Salem PD, because they are ready, they are prepared when those stories unfold. And so today, as a community that is protected by them and served by them, we have a duty to support them. It's truly the least that we can do to help them be prepared to help us. So in a moment, the time will come when you will be asked to open your wallets and your checkbooks and your hearts to show appreciation for a department that gives so much and will surely be called upon again to give even more. And so while you are pondering just how much you're going to give in a minute, let me also tell you the story of how I witnessed that Salem SWAT officer who rescued Sam be reunited with her not too long ago. Sam is 8 now, and she's a healthy, thriving third grader. And I recently looked on as that Salem SWAT officer met her, smiled, and introduced himself. "Hi, I'm Matt," he said quietly. "And we've actually met before, but you don't remember that." Because I guess some stories are better left forgotten. But now, today, you share some of those with me.
So if y'all don't have goosebumps right now, thank you very much, Paige. And I know we're running a little over, but I just have to say, the real stories like that officers all across the country and world deal with every day, these happen a lot. And I think until you get close to an officer or department, or you listen, to the police scanner, you really don't understand what officers deal with every day. And that's what's really driven me to try and help them. And that's why all of you are here right now to help support our officer. After the event, feel free to stay, look at the bikes. They might let you ride one just right here. Check out the training simulator. But most importantly, if you could, please thank the officer at your table. Learn their name, shake their hand. Officers do not ask for much. As the president of the foundation, our board, we have to really say, what can we do to help? What will make an impact in the community? They will let us know, but we have to poke at them. They're not used to asking the citizens for help. They're used to helping the citizens. So let's do our part today and help all of these officers in our department. Thank you again for being here. So please save the date. Next year, February 19th, 2020, we'll be here again. And really, thank you so much for supporting these officers. It really means the world to them. Your generous donations, Steve and Chief and Mayor talked about today. It's just been an amazing couple of years. So thanks a bunch. Please be safe. Thanks for coming.